Welcome to Absolutely PlayStation to Steam Gamers. My name is Benny, that is Dylan, and that is Shackle, Shrinkles, Jowls, Shackles.
Jowls.
Today we're going to talk about our experiences with the War for Wakanda Avengers expansion. Little fun fact, Dylan and I have been playing this game since launch. Dylan far more than me. I've jumped in for every patch and leveled up characters. Shank dropped off, recently came back with the new changes, and he was there at launch with me. All of us play live service games and enjoy MMO-style games, so if this is your first video, we're good people to talk about this too. So anyway.
Agreed.
Let's get out at the beginning. Black Panther's playstyle. Let's go with that to begin with. What do you guys think of his playstyle overall? Dylan, you go first.
I think he's a lot of fun. I think, like a lot of the other heroes in this game, he's kind of basic once you start him, but once you get around like level 30, 40-ish, and you start unlocking some of the mastery and specialty skills, especially there's one that I feel like it's one of the optional ones, but I feel like it is completely necessary, is one that you get 5% of your intrinsic meter with every successful melee attack. And his intrinsic meter, filling it is very important. And it's a lot more dynamic because you're constantly filling it and you're constantly like exploding the energy out from you. And
right.
You can build it in a way that like by the time the buff from exploding runs out, you can do it again. And you could just keep that up as long as you're continuing to fight and landing your intrinsics and parries really well. And I think he's fun. I think there's also the thing that a lot of characters have where there's a lot of like extra stuff on his character that I feel like isn't going to be used that much. Like the pounce is really cool, but I don't see it having a whole ton of utility.
Too many enemies are able to just throw you off. Like you just bounce off with the pounce, which is what I disliked about it. Because even some of the easy enemies are like, nope. And I'm like, you're a nobody. I should be all over you.
Yeah, and to be fair, they do have like you can use the intrinsic version of the pounce, which like surprised me. You can jump on pretty big enemies if you use the intrinsic version, which was fun. But
yeah, I used it on one of the large mechs, and then it ended up glitching into a wall. But I find that funny because I've actually been using the pounce. Now, granted, my Panther is lower level, but I've been using the pounce just for basic attacks, building up his intrinsic meter quite a bit because I've been running into the other issue. It seems like I can pounce on everything and just use the triangle attack again, pounce back off, and then just kind of keep moving. But yeah, it does seem like he's like most of the other characters in the game where until you get his mastery skills unlocked, he just seems really basic. I've been struggling with that on a bunch of characters recently since I've been trying to level them all past that point.
Which I mean, and just to say real quick on that, just what I think is the problem with them, like making the XP climb harder. Because now, like, the only reason why I'm willing to level some of those characters is because, like, I know they get better. I know they're supposed to get better, so I have to get past this point. But it's kind of a slog getting up to there. I had that problem with Black Panther. I loved his gameplay, but, like, he feels very basic at low levels because he doesn't have a lot of utility compared to the other people at the get-go. Like, you know, his range of the daggers is nothing until you do stuff with them. You know what I mean? So it's not like you're going to use them very much. While other characters have, like, lasers and missiles and all these other things they can throw out from the get-go. Or arrows, like half the cast.
It doesn't even feel basic at times. It just feels incomplete. Like, it feels like they started with what they wanted the character to play like, and then they just slowly stripped everything back.
Yeah.
And like you can tell what some of the things are supposed to do. Like you were saying, how far you can throw your little shuriken things. You can tell like those are going to be able to do more damage, and you're going to be able to throw them faster, or like they'll have some type of effect that they're going to be able to put on the enemies. But at first, when you're just starting out, they're basically useless. So it's a short-term problem. So it's just
speaking of like it being a short-term problem, I think they tuned the campaign to get Black Panther in a really usable state. Like, I think that was a really well done thing because like in the base games campaign, you're constantly switching between heroes and stuff. So by the end of that, everyone's around like power level 30, and they're probably not at level 50
not even
yet.
Not even that. Because I know for a fact, because I've done the campaign on PC, and I've gone back to my Miss Marvel, and she's power level 13 and like level 3, and I'm like, oh, I have so much to do with her to get her in a usable state.
Yeah.
And I definitely did her campaign missions.
Right. By the end of the 5 or 6 missions that the War for Wakanda campaign is, on average, your Black Panther will probably be around level 30 with power level 70 to 80, which is plenty to like expose you to most of stuff.
If you watch this before September, because the double XP is going to be going away.
I'm gonna get all my characters to 50 before this ends, because I don't want to be going base XP again.
I want to get every character in a playable state so that if I want to max them out at 150, that we're able to. It doesn't feel painful to do that.
That's what I'm trying to do. But anyway, besides the point, that event is going on until September 8th. If you play now, which is when most of you watching this will, I doubt very many people are going to look at our initial reactions to War of Wakanda in a year. If you play it now, you will get double XP and a bunch of other things. Yeah, caveat. There'll be one guy that's like, I wonder what they thought when it launched. Like,
but also the challenge card for Black Panther has a ton of XP boosts in it, and that's like the first way to consistently get them. And I bought the challenge card because I don't really like doing the challenge card stuff. I bought it with the company money. So
company card.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think I'm gonna get the challenge cards for the 3 expansion packs as well, just because it gives you a little bit more of a way to make the character your own.
Mm-hmm.
Can't really unlock a whole lot without having those unlocked. So
yeah, you get as far as I know, you get I think 2 skins. There's one free in the shop right now for Black Panther, and then you get 2 through missions, I think,
which will also go away September 8th apparently. Supposedly the free costume
that's
will
just
go
for
away.
That's for now. But it's not like a super like high quality expensive skin anyway. It's just a rare skin.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like Black Panther. He's fun.
Yeah. So playstyle I do think is fun. He feels like a weird merge between Captain America and maybe a little bit of Black Widow without any grappling kind of hooks. His intrinsic, this is the first character I feel like you really need to learn how to use the parry properly pretty early on, because if you don't, you're not getting that kinetic explosion, which gives him the damage buff. Because and I will admit this, I recently was going through everyone's harm training, and I discovered all the characters have some form of parry. Some of them are more direct, some of them are more counter, but they all have something. I didn't know that because I never played Cap. Cap, everyone's like, oh, his parry is important, so I didn't play Cap. And I just did all the harm room challenges after a year. A year of playing this on 2 consoles. I was on PS5 and on PC. At no point did I know parry was a thing for everyone and never used it. And I'm going through PC and I'm like, all right, let's finally knock out some of this bullshit single player shit that I don't want to do. And I'm doing it and everyone's like, yeah, learn their parry. I'm like, wait, Kate has a parry? Wait, Clint has a parry?
That's also another thing that I like about Black Panther is like he has parries, and you can, if you don't like parrying or because I feel like at endgame stuff, what we do have, parrying is kind of obsolete because most enemy attacks are unavoidable or unparryable.
Right.
Unless you're Captain America or now Black Panther, if you have a specific ability unlocked. But also he has like little things, like his daggers are important for any build, because if you throw daggers on people, it makes them susceptible to more damage. And there's just a lot going in with the character that kind of flows really well, especially at those higher levels. And that's like I've seen some people complain that he feels kind of basic or just feels like the rest of the characters. And I suspect those people haven't leveled him up enough.
I suspect those people haven't leveled a lot of people up, because one of the biggest complaints I do see to consistently go with what you just said is that, all the Avengers feel the same. Well, yeah,
they're all
it's
the
beat 'em
same.
up. They all have light attacks, heavy attacks, and then combos are what changes.
And then they all shine.
That's the core of the game. Yeah.
They all shine when you start speccing into their intrinsic abilities and their special attacks.
Yeah.
Those are what make the characters feel unique. So
I just feel like a lot of people that like to complain that all the characters are the same in Avengers are the same people that don't want to level any of them past level 10 or actually spend time at the game. So,
and that's like my Black Panther at level 1 is you just kind of punch people and mash buttons. But now at like level 42 or whatever I'm at, and I've also got this piece of gear that when I do percussive blast and I'm in overcharge state, if I throw one of his spears at someone, it instantly triggers vibranium effect on them. So like my
Nice.
loop now is just punching people with the ability that lets me my intrinsic go up until I get the vibranium thing, or until I get the percussive blast, use that, throw a spear at it. I also have 3 spears now that throw really fast and they suck people in. These are all like mastery
Sucky
and
holes!
specialty abilities. They're a lot of fun.
I call all of those sucky holes. When you throw your sucky hole.
Yes, of course.
Everyone's like, "What are you doing?" I'm doing Kate's sucky hole. What? It's her arrow. Just go with it.
Very similar. It's fun. And it also makes the hot tip. If you're struggling with the Black Panther iconic mission chain that gets you the King T'Challa outfit, just upgrade Black Panther. It gets way easier once you're like level 35 to 40.
I won't lie. I was trying to work in that after we beat the campaign yesterday because mine's at 31, about power level 70. So I'm like, oh, I'll go do the iconic chain now. And that percussive blast thing was just what's stopping me because I can't get it to trigger consistently.
That's the tough one.
What you just said, like, oh, it's easier to trigger later. I'm like, well, I know how I'm doing this. Get back to level in Black Panther. That's
Yeah, there's pieces of gear that you can get that, like if he takes damage or does a ranged crit or something, gives you an intrinsic burst. A huge one that helps a ton. He has the thing that every hero has where you can make a takedown drop a specific orb, make them drop an intrinsic orb. That's basically your entire thing right there. And then obviously the melee one, with each melee attack having 5% intrinsic. That's also great.
Yeah. Okay, so moving on then, how do you guys feel about the story? Because one thing, and I noticed this pretty early on, they were toting 7 to 8 hours of story content. There is not, unless you are going
I don't
to
know
go
where they
grind.
said that.
In the trailer. It literally
In
says
the
it
war
in the trailer.
table
Yeah.
or in the trailer?
No, everything about Wakanda says that it will have 7 to 8 hours of story content. That was the promo for this. Anyway, let's cut back in. We just did a double check. The exact statement was 7 to 8 hours of story content as a headline article. When we read into the article, it said game content, which I said, if you count all those bonus missions, because if you look in there, there is the new Horde mode. There is the new, like you can do a specific drop, or what are they called? Warzone for that new type of mission. That would all add up to 7 to 8 easy if you count all the bonus stuff.
I will say I started playing around noon. I started downloading it at like 10 a.m. when it went live, but then it failed twice and Steam took forever to install it. So I started playing around noon.
I was wondering why you were so late. Like, we're halfway through and I just see Orem is starting up Avengers. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, it took forever. I don't know why. I listened to the entirety of Bo Burnham's Inside while it was like
Oh my god.
installing, and I was like, oh god. But it eventually installed, and I went to bed at 11, and I basically went to bed right after I stopped playing. So that was like 11 hours of gameplay for me. But I beat the campaign at like 5, 6 o'clock, and I will say an hour of that was me. I played all of it on Challenge 4, and that last fight, just the last final boss fight, we'll get into spoilers in a minute, but the final boss fight is not tuned for a power level 80 Black Panther raw from the campaign on Challenge 4, because it is like physically impossible without min-maxing to do that fight alone as power level 80 Black Panther.
See, I had a benefit, and we were wondering if this is why we got through the story so quick, which is why I was asking you, Dylan, where you were at. We were running with 4 Black Panthers. So it was 4 buddies, no AI, just going ham. We didn't run into a single issue the entire campaign. But I was also wondering if that's because I was running with 4 people who knew how to play, who was, we were doing it all properly. We were doing the combos. We were doing it all. So that's why I hit you up and was like, hey, how long has it taken you? Because if single player, you have to go level in some of these bonus missions, that would make sense. That's why
I never had to, but I was like, what difficulty were you?
That's what I was about to ask. What challenge
default.
level were you?
We were
at?
just doing the default difficulty.
So
Yeah, 2
is that
then,
2,
'cause
right?
that's
Yep.
Yeah, that's exactly what I did all of it on Challenge 4, and it took a while. Like, it obviously took longer because it was just me. My AI is like, they're all 150 basically, but they don't know what the hell like they're supposed to do. Like, my
Right.
Hawkeye obviously isn't just gonna spam bag of tricks like he's supposed to do, but it's so obviously that like is a time sink, and everyone's 10 levels higher than me. Until like halfway through the mission when my gear has matched that 10 levels.
Yeah.
But like that final boss fight on Challenge 4 is just because it's time gated. Like, I could have done it if there wasn't a timer. but I just physically wasn't able to put out enough damage by myself with stupid AI to kill the boss before the timer ran out. So I gated it down to challenge 2, and I beat it first try. Like, there was no issue.
Yeah, see, that's what I was wondering, like what the challenge differences and stuff.
I mean, 2 felt like I was cutting through butter. Like, that final challenge did not seem to have any difficulty whatsoever.
Yeah.
Have they said anything about whether or not that's going to be a boss fight that we're going to see in the future for villain sectors?
I hope.
About
Crossbones? Yeah.
I am assuming, so we'll get into full spoilers here at this point. So go away if you haven't played it. Go play it. It's fun. It's like 3 hours of story. Just play it on challenge 2. Don't suffer like I did.
Were you just hoping for more upgrade modules? Is that the plan?
I just wanted to have a fun, difficult time.
Okay.
And that's what I got until it became impossible. And of course, someone in the comments is going to be like, I beat it first try on challenge 4. Shut up.
Good job. Good job,
yeah, good for you.
Let us know.
But yeah, so that final boss fight with Crossbones and Claw, I would put money on that being the OLT that's going to come out, and it's going to be stupid and ridiculously difficult. That is my prediction.
I can see that. Because it's also the first time we've had double bosses, like full-blown bosses, not just ads, but bosses. And ads.
Right. And
I enjoyed it.
Just like the Super Adaptoid fight, it's a campaign mission, and it takes you like an hour to get to the boss.
Yeah.
So
here's my question for you guys.
Up.
We had an interesting glitch that happened for everyone. Did your Crossbones head light on fire like it was Ghost Rider?
It absolutely
That's not a
did.
glitch.
Is he supposed to be Ghost Rider?
Yeah, I don't know why he's Ghost Rider. But he shoots fire from his head.
It.
That's not a glitch.
You want to know why he's Ghost Rider? He's Ghost Rider because everybody needs an intrinsic ability. So that there's an explanation for why he's able to go toe-to-toe with Thor.
I love, by the way, how many people, for some reason, are discounting things intentionally put into this game as glitches at this point because of the reputation the game has. There's been so much discourse over Zawavari, the sorcerer guy in Wakanda. He has some hidden Easter egg lines that reference Loki, Scarlet Witch, and Doctor Strange.
Nice.
And everyone is saying that it's a glitch, to the point that every single time it's mentioned, a developer will reply, whether it's on Reddit or on Twitter, not a glitch. This is intended. It's like, oh, jeez.
Wait,
I mean, we just assumed his
they're
head lit
saying
on
the
fire.
Voice
so.
lines that they've heard. They're saying
Yes.
the voice lines are glitches.
Yeah,
you
they're
realize they
saying
have
that
to pay people to come into the studio to record those voice lines, right? You can't glitch a voice line.
No, not the voice line itself. The us being able to hear the voice line now, because they're people are it's like two things are happening. They're misinterpreting that Zaravari is talking to them through magic as like, if you were Scarlet Witch and you walked into that room, that is the voice line that would play if you were Scarlet Witch. But that's not what's happening. He's just talking to her through magic.
But there's a voice line that says, it says something along the lines of, yeah, I still haven't gotten used to him talking to me, like
in my
talking
head.
inside
Yeah.
my own head.
Yeah.
Like it's
People
in
don't
the
pay
campaign. Well,
There's also, if you hear the Loki voice line, you can talk to Thor, who is in the room, and Thor's like, I don't like that he's talking to my brother. And Zalavari's like, get out of here, man. I don't want you here.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, I assumed the fire was just the head, but we were beating him so fast I didn't see his moves. So I just saw Crossbone's head light on fire, and then he would constantly get dropped because just how quickly we were dropping him.
Yeah.
So he wasn't doing anything. It was just, okay. I even said on the stream, I'm like, I got a feeling it's because we have 4 players and it's on challenge 2. That this is not a challenge. We're just melting everything. So
Yeah, that's exactly the case. Because on challenge 4, it's actually kind of fun, because it's like, it's you can't kill, like, you obviously can't kill Crossbones because it has to get to the cutscene where he just bounces. So
I
if you
feel like
do,
that's their excuse for clone. He's not a clone, Crossbones.
yeah, no, we're gonna
You'll just
actually
never
fight him at
beat
some
him.
point.
I'll be okay with that.
Same.
I'm
But
outie.
if you because my goal was like, I was gonna get Crossbones and the turrets down the first time I did it, and then I was just gonna kill Crossbones so I could focus on Claw.
Yeah.
And then once you get Crossbones to like 10% health, he just heals up to full. So it's like, don't do that, obviously. But it was fun because at a certain point, because I was playing with AI, I was just going, if like 2 of them were split on one guy, I would go to the other one and try to group them up so that all of our AoE attacks would hit both of them. And I got really close to beating him. He had like 20% health left once it was just Claw, but then there was like a minute left on the timer before Wakanda like exploded or whatever. And I just couldn't put out enough damage to do that. And my AI, I couldn't tell them to I couldn't yell at them, do battery! We'll kill him if you do battery! They're stupid robots, so they don't know.
What did you guys think about the new changes? I loved the new puzzles. I loved the new things we have to do to open up the doors. I loved the new Wakandan area of running around. I did the entire thing as Black Panther, so I did all the jumps, all the puzzles, all that stuff. How did you guys feel about that stuff?
I like the first puzzle when you're going through the tunnel and you need to follow the history of Wakanda and then hit those pieces. I don't know if that was a puzzle so much as like follow directions, but I still liked
It's a puzzle. It's just an easy one.
Yeah.
And then I'm not going to lie, I changed the Thor halfway through the campaign and I flew past all the other puzzles, so... I'll hand this off to Dylan.
I was going to say, that's actually I wanted to get to that because I and Dylan, you did the same thing you did Black Panther. Did you enjoy the puzzles and the new mechanics, like running up the bot and things like that?
I think if this is going to be a substitution for... Because something that I've wanted since this game came out is campaign single-player missions on the level of the 8A bridge. I want that. And if we're not going to get that, I think this is a fine substitution, just something that... more story with more cutscenes throughout the mission, and puzzles are fun. That's fine. Just something that makes me feel like I'm actually playing a single player mission as opposed to just another multiplayer mission that this one just has more voice lines.
Yeah. So what I did, and this is a fun fact for those who may be watching this, if you're trying to play it with your friends, is I went through the entire campaign and my 3 buddies went with me, and we went to every objective at the same time. Fun fact, all the stuff that takes place in the Wakandan capital has to be done solo, or you will not get credit. We didn't know this until it ended, and I said, guys, I just got the exotic beads. And they're like, oh, we're at the point where we have to go talk to Shuri in the war room. Oh.
Oops.
Yeah, so we fixed it
we'll
easily.
Do all of it alone.
Yeah. Well, no, so I went back, but knowing the puzzles, and we constantly made the joke of the flyers would cheese this unless there's a method around it. They did think of that, but oh boy, did I cheese everything as Iron Man. The spiders will pull you out of the sky. That was the biggest one that surprised me. Like when you're fighting in the last level area and the spiders
they
are
yoink you.
They yoink you right out. I'm like, ah! Because it was hilarious. Because I was like, guys, I'm gonna fly straight up. We're gonna end this objective right now. And they're like, oh, okay, you do that. And I'm like, here I go. Whoa!
The one that caught me off guard was, I think it was vents overheating or something.
Yeah.
And I didn't see the indicator below me. I think the place was turning green or something like that.
Yeah. It was like blue smoke.
And it killed me. And I was like, what the hell heck just killed me? So I went flying again and then I died again. And I'm like, okay, this is getting absurd now. And then I looked around. I was like, oh, wait, hold on. I need to be on one of these platforms.
Yeah.
Yeah. First time I did that, the smoke wasn't visually there. So I was just jumping and getting hit by what I thought was an invisible wall and was like, what the hell is going on? And then I reloaded the checkpoint and I was like, oh, blue smoke.
That's what I was doing the first 2, but I did have the visual indicator, so good job, me.
That's just on you.
Good job, me.
I do feel like we're not getting a lot of flyers just because of this, though. Because I guarantee it's hard to make viable content when you can just zip-diddy-doo-dah past the whole thing. You know what I mean? So they're trying to come up with the reasons why you wouldn't be able to, such as spiders or a ton of turrets on the side. So many turrets.
Again, like I said in our war table for Wakanda video that we did 2 days ago, it doesn't bother me mostly because if this is Black Panther's campaign, so it's gonna have a lot of things for him to jump around and stuff and puzzles to do for Black Panther. Once we get Doctor Strange, he's gonna have something that caters to a more flyer person. I imagine he'll
awesome.
go into the mystical realm and he'll have to fly to different platforms and stuff. But there will be a way for the other characters to get there. It just won't be as interesting. There are in the campaign, there are missions, like the one mission where you're Iron Man and I think you're in Utah and you have to fly through a bunch of obstacles as Iron Man.
That was one of my favorite missions.
that's a flyer mission. Like that, they designed that specifically for Iron Man.
And I hope they don't stop making those. I hope we get more of those. And I hope what, instead of nerfing flying, or I don't know if they're going to buff the non-flyers up, I hope what you were saying, they're just going to put things like turrets, spiders, things just to make it more difficult to fly, things that people who are on the ground don't even have to worry about.
I was able to fly through a lot of the puzzles, but there was segments when we were battling where if I stayed in the air, I got thrown. I had to land and just fight. Because every time I tried to take off for more than a couple of seconds, something was yanking me out or something had a homing missile. Like, it was like, I can do it, but it's such a pain in the butt to stay up here. You know what I mean? Like, I just might as well land and beat up everything.
Dylan, do you know, does flying increase enemy aggro?
I don't think, I was just thinking that as well. I don't think so. But I don't know if anybody knows how threat works in this game. So
I think it might, because I was just doing the Maestro fight right before we had to do all these podcasting. I did the Maestro fight. And me and Houston were doing it, no problem. They're on all the other enemies. I lifted into the air, started to shoot the Maestro. He immediately chucked a rock at me and then charged me into the wall and killed me. And he wasn't on me. Like, so I think there's
that just
something
sounds like
in
the
there.
Maestro. He does that a lot.
So I want to bring up one thing, because I know a lot of people are wondering, is the game gotten better? How is War for Wakanda? And I want to talk about Endgame in a second, Dylan, so don't worry, we're getting to that. I want to say one of the big things that made this campaign really enjoyable for me versus when the last two came out. So I don't know if you remember, Dylan. The first campaign that dropped was Kate, and you and I played it. And you had to play it before me. Yes, you were probably going to anyway because you like to do it alone. But if you didn't, I couldn't be Kate, or you couldn't be Kate. Like, we weren't able to do it at the same time. So it's convenient that you just wanted to do it solo, then you wanted to help me because I was able to be Kate, and you were able to do all your other characters. One of the most enjoyable parts of this was that I was doing it for Black Panthers, because everyone wanted to try Black Panther. So we all could. Like, that was... We all got on Black Panther and we're running around. Now, we color coordinated so that I had like the streamer costume and they all had a costume, so they were my backup dancers. But that was the whole thing. Every time we'd enter, there'd be one Black Panther, normally my character because I was running the campaign talking. And then behind them, you'd see all the ones in the white to pink outfit just being like, yeah, we're here too. Like, so, what do you guys, because you did it solo, Dill, so it didn't affect you that much. And I think you did it solo as well, Shank, didn't you?
I did.
Yeah. But that, to me, was one of the biggest changes that makes this game super enjoyable. We don't have to pick the character anymore. And I keep saying that, but this just made it that much more evident because the new character dropped and we could all be them. No one had to pick someone else.
Yeah, that was a huge change. That I think this game, like I hope they don't go away from single player content in the story sense, but like anything that's locked behind a single player wall that's post, if there's not a reason for it to be single player, then it shouldn't be single player. And that's like evident by the Mega Hive. That was single player for a while. But now you can go in there with friends. It's just harder if you do go in there with friends.
It's fun,
which is fine.
Yeah.
But stuff like this, like if a new character dropped and you weren't able to all play him at the same time, it would have been frustrating, because if you want to play with your regular group of Avengers buddies and you all just have to go off on your own for like 4 hours, like that's fine. And if I feel like people would be more okay with it if all of the missions were original campaign style, handcrafted like missions. But
they're very
clearly
multiplayer
not getting
focused.
that.
Yeah, they're very multiplayer. This felt to me like a larger version of Kate and Clint. That's what this felt like to me overall.
Yeah.
Which isn't a bad thing, because Kate and Clint weren't terrible patches. This just felt like they took the idea and then expanded upon it, which leads me to my next discussion, Endgame additions. That's the biggest problem I have with this. And I know you said the rumor is we're getting everything in a month, but we still don't have a true Endgame. It's still just grind up gear. And this didn't add endgame. It added missions that are power level 80, which is cool. It's more mid-game, more things for us to do, so we're not just running vaults 100 times over. And I appreciate that. I'm looking forward to finally getting all my characters over. I'm getting Iron Man over 80 right now. Everyone else is doing Black Panther, and we want to run the Horde mode and check it out. But I appreciate that, but there's still no true endgame. There's no weekly get-together, go do things. The Mega Hive's like a Band-Aid fix to that. The OLT's a Band-Aid fix to that. It gives us something to do, but you don't have to do it. What do you guys think right now? Because I think we're still in the same end game state where it's just grind.
Yeah, they have added out like literally nothing to the end game in this expansion, and I think that's like the biggest miss with this is that they kept calling it an expansion, but there is nothing here that is really like expanding on anything. Like if you look at it in the same way that you looked at the Hawkeye and Kate operations, those were a few multiplayer missions with some cutscenes that then one of them ended in a repeatable villain sector, so that's something that's added to endgame daily stuff. That's Maestro, repeatable villain sector, which I don't love. I really don't like that boss fight, but at least it's added. But in this, they add 2 new villains. You fight them during the story, and then currently, never again. And it just seems like I feel like the reason they called this an expansion is because they have a lot of stuff planned that will make this in the future look like an expansion. But for now,
the UI changes are huge, and the loadouts are huge if we get them, when we get them.
So my interpretation of all this, their biggest sin right now is that they are not communicating appropriately what they're planning to do. Right now, this just feels, to use a Destiny term, this feels like a season. Like, we had Hawkeye, we had Kate, now we have Black Panther. But because they haven't in stone said, we are going to have these new enemies to fight, you have a new character, you have a new in-game activity, plus we're releasing 5 new exotics, only one of which drops from the campaign. There's a lack of communication, and I really enjoy the quality of life things, like the UI interface at the start menu. I like a lot better. I only have one gripe about that, but overall, I think
what's your gripe with the UI?
That you have to hit square or like R to it. Like instead of going to like say Iron Man's helmet, and I have the highest one on, and I just want to mark all of them for mass deletion, I have to hit another button to modify before I can start marking them for mass deletion.
Yeah.
I feel like it's an
no
extra
reason for that.
It's just an extra non-intuitive step that I don't know why they did it, but it's something that I've already moved past and I'm learning to deal with.
Yeah.
I was talking with some buddies because after I beat the campaign, we went through and I think I was just doing harm room challenges. This game,
because by the time you were ending, the rest of us we had already played for like 8-9 hours. We were kind of.
I literally hopped on when you guys were getting ready to hop off.
Yeah,
but I did end up
beat
doing
the campaign
everything.
twice at that point and run additional stuff down. So
right, I believe me, I understood. You guys had been on since like 1 o'clock or something like that.
9 a.m.
9 a.m. Well,
unlike Dylan, mine downloaded without a problem. I was on immediately.
I had issues apparently.
But my point was, and you can see this when you pull up the roster now at the start menu. It looks full. It looks like Marvel Ultimate Alliance, kind of. It looks like it's starting to fill out the hero roster. I think the biggest issue this game has right now is there aren't enough villain sectors. Why are there so many villains that we fight that we can't get as villain sectors to repeatedly play for higher level gear, better roles on the current gear we have? Because there's such a huge roster of Marvel villains. You could throw those in without even having like a campaign reason for doing them, couldn't you? And it would just give you more things to do.
I'm even going to take this one step further. The biggest problem I have right now is the amount of story villains we have that don't even have a version that is multiplayer.
Right.
Like the MODOK mission. We mentioned MODOK. They could just make a multiplayer fight against them. It doesn't have to be the whole thing. Just be some short. I mean, Maestro is different in the story versus where we fight him for the weekly or the daily.
That's also why I think that the Claw and Crossbones fight is going to be an OLT, because the Super Adaptoid was, like in Kate Bishop, like that was weird. Like we got this Super Adaptoid fight, you do it once and then never again. And now it's this big thing that everyone hates. But like that's what they did with that villain, and it's a repeatable thing, but only a repeatable thing like 6 or 7 months after it first launched. But like, I mean, somebody mentioned this on Reddit. Somebody said that this is how the game should have been in beta with this amount of content, and I think that's a bit far. But if the game released and like, imagine the campaign is the end of the campaign, we get that. And then the post game is recruiting Kate and Hawkeye and leading up to beating the odds, and then after beating the odds is everything that came out on launch day, and this is the first content drop 2 months after the game comes out. This game would have been in a wildly different state, I think, which, that's doesn't matter, but...
Well, part of the problem with live service games in general, and this is a larger discussion, I think when the game came out, and I hear this a lot, I'll join that game in a year. Because most of these live service games in a year or two are like in these pristine spots that you're like, oh, this is so much fun. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And they always come out lackluster, missing content because they know they're going to rope people in and we're going to put it out. We're going to drip feed. We're going to drip feed. We're going to drip feed. That's how this model works in general,
I mean, honestly, can you blame them? They've proven themselves right again, the people who said they were going to wait a year.
Yep.
Right.
It's been a year.
I agree.
The game's in a much better spot that it probably should have been at or at least near release. Like if they just dropped the main campaign and that post that end game content, and then like 3 months later it was Kate, 3 months later it was Hawkeye, 3 months later it was Black Panther, and then we had another campaign size like a year later.
I mean, that's exactly what just happened.
Well, no, I'm saying this doesn't feel to me like an expansion right now. This feels like another season.
Kate and Clint, yeah. And you just did them back to back, so you get a very direct feeling of like, hey, because you played the original campaign, it bugged out, you couldn't even finish. That's why you were playing catch up. You were doing multiplayer with us, but you didn't touch campaigns.
That's interesting because since you just played all of them back to back, like Benny was saying, does just comparing the Operation Taking Aim and Operation Future Imperfect to War for Wakanda, which is apparently an expansion, does War for Wakanda feel big enough, like bigger than those first two, to warrant it being an expansion?
No, I would not say this warrants it being an expansion. I will say it is larger than the first two. There's more content there to do.
Right.
It's just the feeling I get is it's not that, a new story that the Avengers have to address has happened. Like Hydra's popped up and now like all of the Avengers have to go deal with Hydra. And kind of like you were saying, Benny, in the original campaign, it's forcing you to go back and forth and play through all the characters because they're telling a dynamic story. This felt to me more just like the season of Black Panther. Like War for Wakanda is Black Panther's story, which isn't bad. It just felt very similar to the previous two patches.
It's the start to the new story arc. And that's like, I will say I love how they're structuring the story. It feels exactly like a comic book, like an ongoing comic, where the overarching plot thread is AIM, and the first trade ended at beating the odds, and now we're in volume 2, which is Wakanda, Black Panther. We're getting him in there. And it feels really good, and it feels like it is structured off well.
I feel like the point of calling it an expansion is not for you, me, and Dylan. We've played the game, we know it. What I think, if you look at the promos, where the promo isn't saying War for Wakanda. The promo is saying get Avengers now. 25 hours of story content at this point. Yeah. We have all of these things that came out. I think they didn't see a player spike with Clint and Kate, like a massive one. And so what they're kind of promoting is, hey, Shank, you played at launch. Look at everything you've missed. This is all the stuff you got in front of you. And if you are unaware of when this stuff came out, as far as you're concerned, there's 12 hours of story content. There's 3 new characters. There's a bunch of new things to go fight. And I think that's the point, because the promo says 25 hours of story content. I think they're aiming for the people that never even got on board because of the meme that this thing became at launch. So overall, would you recommend the game in its current state to people at the price of $40, which is what it is right now?
At $40, absolutely.
Yeah. I think it's a solid experience. I think, they released a new version of the game, the Endgame edition, where it's $60, but you get a bunch of cosmetics. Like one cool legendary for each hero, I think.
And the 2 Endgame outfits. I will say they really the marketing guys need to just think like for 2 seconds before they say things. I saw Avengers Endgame edition and I'm like, oh, what is this? Like a level boost so I can do the Endgame? And no, it's two Endgame costumes.
That's just tough. That's not their fault.
That is their fault. They didn't have to. Because
that's called a marketing nightmare. They did have to. Because how else do you say, hey, we have the outfits from Endgame, Avengers Endgame?
But here's the kicker. Here's why it bothered me. There's 2 Endgame outfits in that pack. 2. It's not the Infinity Wars. It's not Black Panther. No, it's two. It's two of them, and then random other outfits of those 6 people.
Yeah, but the rest of the outfits kind of suck though, so I'm fine with that. Like the Hulk Gladiator outfit is way better than the Endgame outfit.
And I agree.
100%.
I agree 100%, but I did find it funny that it's being promoted as the Endgame edition. It has no level boost, nothing involving with Endgame, and as far as Endgame the movie, 2 costumes. Like,
Yeah.
it was just, to me, it was like, what a weird choice. What is wrong with you people? Anyway, guys, hope you enjoyed our review and opinion of War for Wakanda. We'll continue to play this game and keep you up to date right here at Absolutely PlayStation and Steam Gamers. I am Benny. That is Dylan. That is Shankles, the jowls of the Shankle. And we will see you guys next time right here.